Good morning. Welcome to the Business End. Today we're very lucky to have a Welsh rugby legend on the show, Dafydd James. Dafydd has 48 caps for Wales. He was a British and Irish Lion tourist in 2001, winning 3 caps, and he has an outstanding record as a winger, both at international and domestic level. Dafydd's career includes some memorable moments, from scoring in the Lions test matches to being one of the top try scorers for Wales in the Six Nations era. But what's just as inspiring is how Dafydd has opened up about his personal challenges, from mental health struggles to navigating life after professional rugby, showing the same courage off the pitch as he did on it. His new book is out in early September. It's called Offloading, Tackling My Truth, where Dafydd addresses his career and the challenges he has faced. Dafydd is now working as a business development executive for Howden. They are the principal sponsors of the British and Irish Lions tour to Australia. Dafydd, welcome to the Business End.
Oh, it's great to be here, guys, and looking forward to having a chat with you about my past, my present, and hopefully the future.
Welcome,
Great
Dafydd.
stuff. Great stuff. So let's take you back to your beginnings, Dafydd, and your childhood in Bridgend. What do you think was in your DNA or your setup, your environment that pushed you to become an elite performer?
I think it was, my parents were involved in school, in sports from when they were young, and my dad was heavily involved in rugby, football, basketball, athletics, and just growing up in the late 80s, essentially with my brother Stuart. It was just what you did. You just went outside, kick a ball around. It was a hard working class family, tough sort of upbringing, really. Just had to go out, find your way, grit, grind, do what you needed to do. So I think, that the strength within was in there. It was just about nurturing skill sets and developing myself.
Okay.
When did you realise that you had a talent for rugby and that was being nurtured? Was that at school? Was that at the rugby club? Where did that happen, Dafydd?
Well, I grew up in South Africa initially, and then we come back to Bridgend. So it was we were living up on the Highveld, so I was playing rugby from about 6, 7 years of age, and then all of a sudden come back to Bridgend, Wales, and it's once again it's one of the main sports. Just used to go down following the local Premiership club at the time. It was Bridgend, the Ravens, the likes of JPR Williams had donned the shirt, and JJ Williams, and a number of other great names over the years, and used to just go down and watch it. So with me, it was just a matter of playing the game, wanting to try and get the best out of what I could do, and then really putting my best foot forward. But I was a late developer. I'll be quite honest with you. I was second team in the first year of the comp. I went to a prestigious grammar school called Bryn Teg, which is a hotbed of rugby internationals, British and Irish Lions over the years, from JPR Williams and Mike Hall and Rob Howley and lots of other internationals have come through there. So, it was steeped in tradition of playing the sport. I wasn't, I was lacking in confidence, I suppose, at that early age. But, I was an athlete. I, did hurdles in school, got records in that. And up in South Africa, I was doing a lot of athletics. So I had speed, and it was just nurturing my talent, really. And it was, it's like with a lot of young lads, they develop at different stages in life. I was more of a late developer. And I was just playing the game, just enjoying it. And, just as you did back in the day, it was just lots of time to kick a ball around in the evenings. You didn't have social media. You didn't have all the other sort of external sort of environments. And it just went from there. And it was one particular occasion, I think I was invited to a trial. I was playing for the district side, and someone saw something in me. And that just ignited the fire.
Fantastic. I mean, growing up in that era in Wales must have been fantastic. Just following on after some of the legends that you mentioned, and around the same time with many others. I mean, the rugby culture in Wales is really, really unique. The passion and the pressure, must be huge when you get up to the, putting on that red jersey. How much did that environment shape you early on?
Yeah, it was the bread and butter, isn't it? Really, every boy and child or girl, as it is now, would want to represent their country, and steeped is synonymous in Wales rugby. It's more like a religion. It's very much everything that everybody's talking about. Everybody knows everybody, and yeah, look, the pressures come thick and fast, really, and there's no more pressures than I put on myself. But you're in the shop window. It's like a goldfish bowl in Wales, and you see all these coaches coming in. I don't think they realise how intense it can be. With everybody, from even going into the supermarket, looking in your trolley of what you've got, and I've had that. Well, why are you eating this, or why are you? No, it's like, well, oh, I didn't know I had to justify having a yogurt. But anyway, so yeah, it's quite surreal, and unless you've actually been in the environment, you don't quite get it. But it's you just got to channel your inner self, have your confidence, and get good people around you. I think in every walk of life, I think it's important to get the right people around you. There's plenty of people who are very negative and drains, and there's the people then that are the positive energy, and I would suggest sticking with the positivity.
I think that's an incredibly good point. Having a good support system around you, and mentors as well. People that tell truth to power, but are also very, very positive and have your best interests at heart. Great point.
Yeah. Fairness, it's lucky me and Fitzy didn't live in Wales. If they looked in our shopping trolley, I would put that in. Fitzy's trolley. But yeah, obviously growing up playing in Wales, the pressure, is just immense. There's a great learning curve, I suppose, even as a young man, to deal with that pressure. But if you look at your play, you mentioned you had to work very hard when you were a child. But would you say? You're known for your tries, and the way that you played. But was that confidence natural, or did you have to work at it?
No, it's like anything in life, if you're a business leader, you've got to work, you've got to start from the bottom and work up, we've all got different assets and attributes that we can tap into. We're all born with a certain amount of skill and knowledge, essentially you develop as you're getting a bit older. But for me, I was quite a shy, reserved individual, a lot of anxiety, and it's like an avatar. I don't know really. I wasn't a wild child by any stretch of the imagination. We had our fun, my brother and I, growing up thick as thieves, but it was a matter of, we'd end up fighting in the streets and all that sort of stuff that kids do. And but no, I think it was quite hard really, because initially it was one man and his dog watching you playing rugby, when you start off in the grassroots sort of rugby, and then all of a sudden it gains a little bit of momentum, and it changes the whole concept. And then everybody's got an opinion. You can make a missed tackle when you're playing grassroots rugby and no one really bothers. Whereas once you get up onto the pinnacle, you're scrutinised to the max. And we've seen that in the last weekend, really, in particular with the Lions games. So for me, it was, I was lacking a bit of confidence, and it was a matter of the just self-belief. I still struggle a little bit with that today. I think, like we touched on there, it's about having positive people around you, people that will, support you. I'm a big believer now I got two young boys, I say young boys, young men now, 20 and 18, Alan and Griffin, and I always tell them, look, follow your dreams. Don't let anybody else tell you can't do it, because you can do it. Just believe in yourselves. And I think we can take that, and a lot of people need to do that, because we've all got the people that say, nah, what you're doing is ridiculous. But if that's what you're passionate about and that's what you want to do, don't let anybody take you or deviate you from your plan. And in life, you need your plan. You need a focus. You need the drive. And for me, I was blessed, gifted. I had speed. Got the attributes. I'm tall, 6'4", and then a matter of it just worked in my favor. It was like someone showed a bit of interest in me, and then I got that little bit of a bug and the drive, and it just went from there really. And right place, right time. Sometimes we all know that, and maybe that's the law of attraction.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a very important point about avatar. I know you mentioned this to me in the past. So when you played rugby, you put on a face, effectively. Is that right? A rugby face? Would that help you build your confidence?
Yeah, because when you coming into the professional sort of era, and tens of thousands of people watching, millions sometimes, and on the TV and the World Cups and whatever, for me, if you can get overwhelmed by it, it's like being in the boardroom. You know what I mean? You've got high pressure situations, and that's where we can take the high performance sport and business. It works the same because the pressures are the same. That it could be millions of pounds. It could be losing a test match against New Zealand or Ireland in a final, or the Six Nations, the championship, or whatever it is. So it's about of controlling the controllables, because you could as an individual going into a stadium, and we've seen it time and time again, where you got really good club players, but then they get elevated into the international arena and they get lost because they get swallowed up with the crowd. The pressure's coming in. So for me, it was a bit of internal reflection, looking at myself and going, right, okay, don't think about everything else. Just concentrate on what you do. And I'd always want to get into the game early on in the game, to get a big hit, make a tackle, pass, whatever it was. Try, yeah, you're on top of the pop straight away. And I think it's just settling the nerves for me. And the bigger the game, the better I felt. So I done the reverse psychology. No, the more people, wow, this is what it's about. This is what I strive for. This is why I dedicated all them hours to training, recovery, nutrition, sleep, not going out with your mates, doing things like that. And it paid off, because that's what I wanted to do. And that's where I wanted to go.
So really, listening to you there, so it's a really interesting concept there, channeling rather, the atmosphere in a positive way, as opposed to, using your words there, getting swallowed up. That's yeah, very interesting. So I mean, you've throughout your career, you've played under and played with some great rugby legends, in the game. Graham Henry, Mike Ruddock, Steve Hansen, Martin Johnson was your captain for the Lions. What sort of leadership traits stood out for most for you, and which ones of those have you taken with you through your life?
Leadership, resilience is a big one, purely because adversity and going through injuries, bouncing back from negative sort of impacts. And, resilience I don't use too lightly, because, I've gone through the mill when we talk about my mental health. So you have to have that inner drive and that self-belief to keep going forward, taking that extra step to keep moving forward. And it's very similar in business. It's similar in life. Having the ability to bounce back from a negative environment, you know what I mean, or negative impact, where you've had a nasty injury, or you've been dropped for a big tournament, or you've lost a big £1 million deal, or whatever it may be. So for me, that's a massive thing that I do. But some of the best leaders I've been under, they build that trust. They build that, want and desire. You see, you can back on that individual, because, in professional sport, it's like a business context where you've got a team, or you should have, or you will have people around you. And you want to be confident that your right-hand man, your peer or girl, or wherever it is, has done the hard graft that they need to do. You can control what you do, but you can't control what they do. So you have to have that trust, that element of yeah, we're all unified, we're all aligned, we're all going on this road together. And that's some of the things I have. It's communication skills is another thing I've taken from the rugby and some of the great coaches and leaders. Being able to communicate with people. Standard in business, you've got to be able to talk what you want to do, where we're going. We've got to have the vision, got to have the focus. And once again, it's all about the alignment. So communication is important, and it's the way you communicate, the tone, the manner that you communicate as well, because some people, management skills, they'll need a harder edge. They'll need a little bit more of a, right, you need to do this. and other people will need a softer approach. So it's different approaches in communication. So it's man management skills as well. So when I look at it, some of the best leaders I've had some of them skill sets.
I also
No.
put you on the spot, David. Who would you say? I mean, there's also Warren Gatland as well, who I think coached you. Who, in your opinion, would be the best leader, whether as a captain or as a coach that you played under?
Well, it's funny because I've had some wonderful captains over the years, and people I respect, and some weren't really great communicators, as in a social communicator, if you like. But when they did communicate, they meant the real deal. And you look at Martin Johnson, one of the great captains for the Lions over the years, World Cup winning captain for England. And you look at him, and I can remember when I was in 2001 and listening to him, he didn't say much throughout the tour. He didn't mingle too much. So you thought, oh, okay, that's his way of dealing with things. And that's fine. Each to their own, the way that they prepare in order to be the best they can. And what I found with him was, you usually get in the changing room. If people are familiar with the change room, you'll always have the one or two chopsy people who are saying things. There'll be the quiet guys over in the corner doing this. Someone playing, if you're Gavin Ensign, you're doing your hair in a corner, or you're Mike Phillips doing his fake tan. So you've got all them, and then all of a sudden you've got this guy that just comes from nowhere. And when the crunch, you're going to knock on the door, and the referee says, right, you've got 5 minutes before you're going out. And this guy just stood up, and he was immense, softly spoken initially, and then it just commanded respect. And that, to me, is a great leader. And then you knew that he was going to put his body on the line, because he actually said, we go out, we're unified, and which made it even more special because it was 4 nations coming together as one in the Lions. And you're going, wow, you feel part of it. You feel part of your team. And that's what it should be in business as well. You want to be all aligned. You want to be all together, thinking, yeah, you're not going to get on with everybody. But when it comes to the crunch, you're all singing on the same hymn sheet. And he did that. And then we go onto the field. And in 2001, you could still get away with a little bit of the argy-bargy and the punching and all that, which I don't condone, but part and parcel of the game, the physicality, the testosterone running through people and the aggro. And it was one particular game, I think it was New South Wales. I think it was a long kick-off. I chased it down, pulled the man down. They run all over me, tap danced me. And I got up, and it was a bit of a scuffle and whatever. Martin Johnson just come in, and he grabbed 2 players, one by the scruff and one by the, and just holding them off. And it was his big wingspan, and it was like he's actually backing up what he said. He was in there with you, and then he just commands that respect, because you go, yeah, he's got my back, and there's no better feeling than that.
Yeah. No. You mentioned this in the past. I think I shared a clip with you guys last night about Alex Ferguson. And he was talking about the prerequisites of players. They must be disciplined, they must have grit and all of these things. And all I was thinking about that when I was looking at that video was, yeah, but that players have got that instinctively, but you're giving them the platform for them to do that because you've got a leadership that's probably a lot more empathetic. And you talked about this in the past because he cares about the result, and obviously different leaders show that in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes that basically means then the leaders can have conversations with players that perhaps a player wouldn't take if they didn't trust the motives of that particular leader. I mean, it's obviously a fine balance though between empathy and getting results. I mean, where do you think that balance lied for you?
It's you've got to have empathy in anything, and it's just. It's hard because you're a professional at the end of the day. You need to win the games. So you've got to, it's like winning a business deal. You're going out there, you've done all your hard work. And this comes back to the trust aspect as well. It's right. Have you done what's needed to get us to this position? You wouldn't go to the World Cup final tomorrow, Ireland playing England or Wales or whatever, and you wouldn't have done your homework. You would have done it. You would have done the build up. You would have done everything. So it all boils down for me to the trust aspect of, right, we've done it, we've been diligent, we've been focused, we're driven. There's only so much research you can do, and you have to be able to take that onto the field of play or into the boardroom or whatever it may be and seal the deal. Sometimes it goes well, other times it doesn't go well, and you've got to go, right, okay. It's a hard pill to swallow when you don't actually win, but then you think, right, okay, what can we learn from this? And I think that's the important aspect you need to do is go, right, okay, even if you won, I think you've got to celebrate success first and foremost. But you also got to have the ability to go, right, okay, let's critique where we went wrong. We're not all that good all the time. There's parts. So it's getting a fine line really, and it's about the people. People respond to people and the way you treat them, and I think it's important that you don't lose that personal sort of aspect as well.
Yeah. So basic good leader, would you say, would be fair to say, would win trust, would have the trust of the players, and the players would know that they cared about the team, and that would manifest itself when you go in that extra yard because the leader.
Yeah, well, I think people, when they feel it's once again, it's the thing about feeling valued,
Yeah.
respected, valued. If you like in an organization, if you're feeling valued, they tend to say that people will stay more, they're longer because they feel valued. You're looking after their benefits, you're looking after their private medical care. They feel wanted, appreciated. And in a rugby context, if you look at the sporting thing, yes, you get put on a pedestal, yes, you get the hotel, the food and whatever. But when it comes to the crunch, and you're in a pressure cook environment, you need to know that your peers are behind you if you're the leader, or you're following the captain, and you're actually towing the line, and you're doing what's needed to do. And he needs to feel valued, or the captain needs to feel valued as much as you do. And then it might be you've done a great scum at Fitzy, or you've had a big hit up. You're rewarded by people going, yeah. That was all down to you. We scored the try on the wing. I scored the try on the wing, but it was down to you boys securing the ball at the front. It's a collective.
Well, like you were saying with Martin Johnson a moment ago, in that moment where there was a bit of argy-bargy off the ball, he was there and he walked the walk. He led as a captain, supporting one of his players, and I think that's a critical point. In business, you can have all the policies, you can have all the benefits and everything else, but there are moments where you need your peers and you need the leaders there to step up for you and make sure you understand they've got your back.
Yeah, you do, and that's the important thing, isn't it? Before you go to play rugby in these big sort of environments, you get your values. You have your values, you have your, and it's set out not as one individual saying it, it should be as a collective. What are we all vying for? Because it should be, hang on, your opinion counts just like hers does, so you all have to have the same value. You all have to have the same sort of ethos. And that's what unifies a team, and that applies to business as it does in sport, every line of walk, and when people's values are different, that's when it doesn't work. You haven't got the same ethos, you haven't got the same, a lot of people, if they're just going out there for money, well, they're driven by different aspects. And and that's in business deals with sales sort of environments. As the same in rugby, if they're just going out to white line thief and just score tries themselves and get the accolades, it's like, well, okay, it may work once or twice, but on the long haul, it's not going to work. And it's, you can't have an individual. You can't, not in a team environment.
Very true.
I mean, I spoke about this earlier in the week about I was talking about middle managers, and they often get kind of bad press, but they most of them aren't trained to be leaders, and they should, first and foremost, and secondly, because they're not trained, they become very directive about what to do rather than getting the buy-in of the team first, and what the culture is, and what the purpose is. And the moment that you have a leader that perhaps doesn't share the same values as the rest of the team or the employees, the rot starts setting in very quickly. So if a middle manager tells you to do something, you're like, what's their agenda? And it very quickly manifests, and the whole thing becomes quite rotten. after a while. So yeah.
David, you were very much known. You mentioned scoring tries there, but you were very much known as one of the most clinical finishers in the game. What did elite performance look like for you day to day?
It's doing the things that people don't normally think you should do, and doing the right things, making the right choices. So professional sport for me was all about being the best I could be. Sometimes I let myself down a little bit, probably when I look back and reflect. But that was just my own high targets, really. And, I was very successful when you look back. But I got a bit of imposter syndrome going on where, I wished I could have done a bit more. And this is why I say is you need time to reflect and go, yeah, enjoy the moments, enjoy them moments. Don't get too carried away with it. Enjoy it, right? And then you can move on to the next. So if you never really enjoy them moments when you've been successful, you're never ever going to be happy, because you're going to reach the pinnacle and then just drop down. You're going to reach and drop down. So you're not keeping it more level keel. So for me, professional sport was about doing the little details. So for me, it was, my nutrition, getting up in the morning, checking in with myself, how am I feeling? It might even be to just put my heart rate on for 15 minutes, or, when I went really intense into these sort of things and saying, right, okay, my heart is this 49 beats a minute, or whatever it was. How am I feeling? Yeah, feeling good. Right, breakfast, get up, walk around, visualizing, always visualizing about what I was going to do in the day. And it was very structured. It was very focus driven. Right, what are you going to do? We've got weights. What part of weights are we going to do? We've got power weights today. Okay, then we're going to recovery. So I'd have my nutrition. So what I used to do is I'd have fruits right after, get that little bit of a sugar spike, and then I'd have protein. So my muscles would recover that a little bit much quicker. And then I started researching about, what is the optimal time to recover, for your muscles, replenish your muscles with the nutrients and macronutrients and micronutrients and stuff. And so I'd go that deep into it, really. I started studying about nutrition. I'd done a nutrition diploma then, and it was just to really let me know why I was doing things, what benefits I could get. So I took it upon myself because I wanted to know. I'm keen to know if I'm doing something, like I'm involved in insurance, I want to know about it. If I'm going to talk to someone about it, I want to know. And I was trying to be a master of my craft, essentially. So professional sport for me was, just doing the little things that people take for granted or don't do. Stretching, for argument's sake. I did start doing ice baths, but I was blinking awful at ice baths because of it. I had a really low body fat. But yeah. So look, they're the type of things I would do. It was about the water intake, about keeping yourself hydrated and different things like that, really. So yeah, I took it to another level, and then it was a matter of it come into the top 3 inches, because it was how much physicality can you do? How much impact can your body keep taking? And it was like, right, okay, but your mind's got to be in the right place. And there was a guy that come into our environment, a guy called Steve Black, back in the day, which you probably know, the conditioning coach for Wales. He was with Gaza. He was with a number of professional sports people, and he was brilliant. And he brought in NLP, which none of us really knew in Wales, neuro-linguistical programming, taking your mind from the conscious to subconscious. And he was talking about how athletes, when they're in this conscious state, their muscle fibers and nerves will twitch, like as though they were actually competing in a event, but you aren't doing the physical sort of side. So your nerves will start tingling and whatever, and it mimics what you do in the field of play. And so I thought, wow, that's quite interesting. So you give us these alpha tapes, as it was called, and we start visualizing. It was talking about playing in front of a big crowd, and it was talking about things. So then I picture myself scoring tries, or making a big hit, or whatever it was, or just being involved, and it gets you. And they talk about it in sports. An analogy is in the zone. in the zone, they call it, being in the zone. So it's free flow. And I've had several moments in my life or career when things just seem, everything's just all aligning, all the ducks just align in one go. And it's an incredible thing to feel. And then, yeah, that's worked. That's worked. All that's paid off. But it's about doing the preparation. People think you just get to a stage and it doesn't happen in any walk of life. You have to do some form of moving forward, preparation, planning, focusing, and do the hard graft. And so professional sport for me and professionalism in my business life now in Howden is very much about trying to secure, trying to visualize it. It's different in business. I get it, but life goes on.
And as you say there, it is obviously the parameters are different, but the fundamentals are the same, whether it's sport or business, doing that preparation, doing that homework, looking for those incremental gains, looking how you can get an edge, looking how you can be better. So that's all great advice for people out there. It doesn't just happen. You have to work, it's got to have that foundation of hard work underneath it. But I want to pick up on something you said earlier, as you were speaking there, about staying in the moment. And I know myself, and I'm sure we're not alone in this, that, because of the nature of sport where you're under that microscope on a weekly basis, you're either looking forward to the next game or you're looking back to the previous game and looking to see where you could improve or get better or prepare for the next game. And I certainly struggled a lot with staying in the moment. When you do have those great successes and highs of really enjoying it for what it was in that moment. And I didn't notice that until I retired and looked back on certain periods, and it's very important, the looking forward and the preparation and the planning is critical in business as it is in sport, and reviewing what success is and probably more important, what failures you had previously. But also, you've got to stop and smell the roses as you walk the path of life, and enjoy those moments of success.
Yeah, I just picking up on another point as well about professionalism and what it means. I remember an interview with David Campese in the late 80s. He used to go out at lunchtime and start doing grid sprints and everything. And they would say, "Why are you doing that? You're not paid." He said, "Well, I'm a professional athlete." He said, I'm a professional athlete because I just want to get better at what I do. And that's the definition of a professional person. Someone who wants to be an expert in what they do, and someone that's always striving to be better, which is like a very very common trait of an elite performer. Everyone wants to self-learn and improve, basically. But going on to the mental side of things, I mean, you've already answered really most of it, and I suspect you're going to say exactly the same thing. But in terms of the mental preparation, you talk about it a lot. Do you think that that's as important as a physical side, or is it a 50-50 split?
No, I think the way I look at it, and I talk about this to a number of people, and they say, yeah, for argument's sake, in the current position where Wales is at the moment, really, and they say, yeah, we need to be more powerful, or we need to be stronger, we got to be quicker, and there's only when you come to the top level, as you boys can probably relate to, there's fine margins, and there's so much you can do, because in professional sport they'll have the benchmark, same as in business, KPIs, exactly the same, and they'll say, right, you should be squatting this, you should be benching that. Yeah, you hit it. Okay, you hit the same target. So roughly everybody's around the same in the top 6 nations in the world, roughly. Pushing the same weight, pushing the same thing. So what is the differentiator? And for me, it's about your top 3 inches. Yeah, look, and your skill set. Yes, you've got to work on your skill set, and you've got players like Colby, and then you've got other players like Van der Merwe, right? They're different, but they're both equally, international players, top world-class players. So what differentiates you from the next person? So you can have like for like, Shane Williams and Colby, like for like, yeah. Well, okay, well Colby could be, but it's whether or not who's got the top edge to stay calm. Who's gonna cracking the pressure like Sexton, kicking for goal meticulously. Same as Lee Halfpenny, and then all of a sudden something will go wrong. Well, what's wrong? Oh, he's not fit enough. No, he's not. He's not fit enough. His mind has wandered a little bit, and unfortunately, he hasn't struck it as sweetly as he could have. So the top 3 inches for me is vitally important, and I think, and this comes down to mindfulness. Same in business. It's about taking care of yourself, because you can get overwhelmed with things. I certainly do get overwhelmed, and a lot of people will in life, because things happen throughout a life, and we just have to embrace that. That's the path that we're on. That is what is inevitable for all of us. We've arrived here. We are going to leave here sometime, and you know, we're going to go through adversity. So, you know, it's how you deal with things in the moment. And the top 3 inches for me is vitally important. It's what differentiates you in the heat of the battle, and there's a decision. You know, it's like the Jack Morgan sort of incident on the weekend, really. A split-second decision, make it, commit, bang, done. Try scores, Keenan scores, and the Lions win the series. So it's, you know, if you said, oh yeah, that wasn't, you know, it's ingrained in him. It was autonomous how he hit that ruck. He was alone. His brain, it's in his mind. It's not, he didn't think about it before. It was just there. It was just autonomous. And that's all down to mental preparation.
Yeah. Would it be fair to say though that all the preparation and all the like the self-improvement and all the hydration and researching and taking fruit and things like that, would that give you the mental confidence then to go on to that top 3% in mentality by doing all of that preparation thing, everything?
Yeah, but it's the same as if you've got a Ferrari, say there are better cars or whatever, but if you're gonna put rubbish fuel in the car, it's not going to perform as good as it could, right? You know, as a simple analogy. So if you've got a well-tuned machine, a rugby player or a car or whatever, if you're not going to use it to its best of its abilities and give it what it needs in order to reach its peak performance, you're not going to get the best. And from a sporting context, you know, you have good nutrition. That's why they have nutritionists. That's why they look after themselves. They try not to drink loads of nonsense and lots of sugary foods and processed sort of stuff. So when you look at it, and it's the same in business, you know, because yeah, people working long hours. Are they really looking after themselves, or are they going to have burnout? Are they taking that time to replenish their nutrition? Do they know about nutrition? Because, you know, you are what you eat. I'm a big believer in that. And if you don't look after yourself, yeah, you've got to have some enjoyment. But if you're not looking after yourself and you're working long hours, you're going to burn. Something's going to give. Yeah. So how do you empty that pint glass full of the stress, empty a bit of that out so you can start again and feel a bit fresher? And it's important, and businesses can take a lot out of that, really, where, you know, you can't burn the candles both ends and expect to get the same sort of result, because it doesn't work. And all you get is an unhappy workforce, a depressed workforce, and people going on absenteeism. So I think there's lots of things you can take from professional sport and incorporate into business. And I think, you know, if that was what we were talking about, I know I've gone off on a tangent here, sorry, but yeah.
Well, yeah, it is. It's 2 points. I mean, like, you spoke about this for me in Dubai. We used to talk about this a bit. You know, if you're like a CEO of a big company, if you're an elite player, say at Manchester United, and you've got a big game on a Saturday, you're not going to go out for 6 pints and a curry on a Friday night. So why would you do that as a business leader?
Oh, absolutely. And
secondly, I find in business, if I don't prepare, if I'm not grafting, not looking at like continuous improvement, if I don't do those things, my confidence will fall apart. And it's important for me to get that top 3%, as you were saying, to do everything right, basically, so you're confident in what you do every day. So, I mean, they're really great points that you make, yeah.
Well, and I think it comes back as I'm listening to you, David. There, you know, you clearly had a very curious mind. So you're looking at the challenges that are presenting themselves on the journey as a professional athlete, and thinking, okay, well, how can I be better, and learning the science behind nutrition, as you just explained, for example. And again, if you're going to be a high performer in whatever situation, whether you're a CEO, whether you're an international rugby player, having that same curious mind is, how can I be better? How can my team be better? Disseminating that information, putting in those fundamentals, so people aren't burning out, which is a huge problem in business.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So, as we've talked about, I mean, you played at the highest level, very storied Six Nations career, British and Irish Lion. What lessons about resilience and performance do you see as directly relevant to business?
Well, we keep on talking about the resilience, isn't it? Bouncing back from adversity, and from a sporting context, I perform a sport is very similar to the boardroom. For me, really, you got one opportunity, one chance. Sometimes to make that right pitch in order to get the deal done, and it's universal. The pressure is universal because it comes in different ways in sport, because everybody's looking at you. You're putting there social media, public attention, all that. So you've got different sort of pressures that come there. So it's remaining calm in the situation, really. But it all comes down, the analogy, isn't it? Coming down to preparation. If you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. And it's the same in business. Like you said, you wouldn't go out and have a bender the night before a big rugby international, and you shouldn't really do it before you're having a big business pitch, because you're not getting the best out of yourself. You're not really going to convey the message you want or show your skill set. So, it's preparation, but it's just having a focus, having a vision as well. That, when you come right back and you strip it down to the bare bones, it's about having a path initially, having them little steps in order to reach your defined goal. And your defined goal in the sporting world is to play on the international stage and win the World Cups and Lions and play for your national team. And in the business world is to achieve as high as you want to go. Do you really want to be an MD or CEO or that? I've certainly got aspirations to succeed and be there and lead. And, for me, you practice what you preach. And if you want to be a good leader, you've got to be you've got to be a role model. You've got to be able to communicate. You've got to be driven, and you've got to be able to take them tough decisions. And there's a rationale behind it, but you've got to have trust. A lot of things I take, and there's so many overlaps with rugby. We can talk and talk and talk about this, really, for other professional sports, about the trust aspect, trust in business, trust in sport. It's the same. Who's got your back? And all right, okay. Have we done what we said we were going to do? Have you done your health and safety checks? Have you done your due diligence on who we're employing? Have you done your anti-money laundering? Same with the rugby. Have you done your homework on your opposition? What plays are they going to do? What's Rasmus bringing out under his sleeve? Well, and it's always been able to communicate as well. So, look, there's no one definitive word or term I could use, but so many collectives over the years that I could go, wow, I can relate to that now. And it's probably an age thing as well, because you go, well, I didn't think of that. Remaining calm. Yeah. I used to have trigger words when I was playing the game: relax and focus. I can remember doing a sports psychology I started doing a course on that because I wanted to learn more and more about it. And I said, I have trigger words. Once you get in the heat of the moment, like I said, you can get swallowed up by a crowd. You can get swallowed up by speaking in front of a big audience, talking about a business pitch. And it was all about your breathing first, breathing. But have two words, it said in this book. I can't recall which psychology book it was. Just two words which mean something to you. Your internal, external. So it was relax. I chose relax and focus, because you're all uptight, angry. Just relax your muscles, stay calm, and focus. Instead of looking all out at the crowd, focus on what you're looking at. focus on what your objective is. And it's the same when I've started doing, public talks really and stuff like that. I didn't think I could stand up in front of people and talk before, you'd be a bag of nerves. Whether I'm any good is another thing, but it's a matter of, right, just relax. You know what you're talking about and just focus on what you're looking at. Don't get swallowed up by millions of people. It's the same when you talk to a television camera and you've got a camera on your face and if you think about it, there's millions of people watching me on the TV and you start thinking about that and you lose track of where you are. And it can be overwhelming, so that's what I would say. So to answer your question, what have I learned? I've learned an immense amount of teamwork, camaraderie, that ability which we've all got in us somewhere, resilience, which we've all got it. And it's about how you tap into it.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I mean, again, we talked about your curious mind, and you mentioned again there, I wanted to learn more about sports psychology, so I went in and did a course. But what keeps on coming out for me is your planning, right? You've had that curious mind. You've looked at different aspects that you wanted to improve upon, but then you've put plans in place with stratagems as you go along that you can then tap into that knowledge and bring you back to the path, so you can be in the moment as useful to the team and as effective as you can be.
Yeah, I think I think you're never too old to learn. I'm a big believer in that, and I think the CEOs that I speak to now, I think the more modern CEO is open to, yeah, I haven't done it all. Yeah, I can learn off somebody, and it's the same when you're playing. Unless I'm an international rugby player or was, but I still wanted to learn. Yeah, how do I perfect the sidestep? How do I work on my weaknesses? I wasn't the complete article, and for me, what frustrates me a little bit more, and this is my own internal thing, is I probably put my benchmark so high, but that's what drove me. That's what made me the person I am, really. But sometimes you can't reach where you put that bench, that marker, and that's my own sort of problem. And if I'm critiquing myself, and it's like, well, maybe just be kinder to myself. And and that's possibly why I got my challenges on a mental sort of side, and partially because of that, maybe I don't know, but I think it's the hunger to learn, because there's so many wonderful things out there, so many things that we can learn from different sports, from different business people. I'm intrigued. Like, I work in the insurance world at the moment with a company called Howden, largest sponsor of the Lions. And for me, it's about not just being Dafydd James, the rugby player. I want to be Dafydd James insurance, Dafydd James who can speak about leadership, talk about nutrition, and actually practice what you preach. I think there's a lot of people out there, who confess to doing stuff, and we all know we embellish quite a bit. But it's a matter for me. It's about learning. Well, let's learn about different leadership techniques. Would that benefit me in my work? Probably. Let's learn a little bit more about the insurance market and what's going on in the world and how it's affecting, different businesses and, cultures. But I enjoy going out and I talk to clients, and they're self-made millionaires. And I'm intrigued. How did you do it? How did you do it? I'm not jealous by you. Yeah, I'd love to be one of them. But I'm just intrigued because my brain is ticking. Wow, that's great. Is there anything I can use into putting into this to do that? And that's how I work. Not everybody works like that. I probably think I'm a bit mad, but I just find it quite rewarding, really. And I'm chuffed for people because they've achieved what they wanted to do. It's not being negative and jealous about people. It's comparison is the thief of all joy, isn't it? That's the saying.
I was going to say, David, though, those self-made millionaires that you speak to are more intrigued by you, and they would have loved to put on a red jersey of Wales or play for the British Lions, something that money can never buy. And they're intrigued. They want to know what's in you to make you an elite performer. They want to know what's in you to to put on a Lions jersey and compete in front of like hundreds of thousands and millions watching over the world. That's something that they've never experienced, and that's why business people were so intrigued by sport. And what I found from speaking to people, elite performers like you, David, and what I've been impressed by is the fact that how much that you take from sport into your business life, and I've been like really mega impressed by that. But we touched upon this. You touched upon this in the last answer. We talked about mental health, and obviously there's a big push for that in sport, and we've talked about management. We talked about mental health a lot, both of us, and I found it an eye opener. But do you think business can learn a lot from the way that rugby is dealing with mental health at the moment?
I think it works both ways. I think rugby can learn a lot from businesses as well. I think if you've got a very forward thinking environment that understands its people, empowers its people, and trusts people essentially. And we mentioned about it at the start about valuing you. And I think as an employee, to feel valued by your employer is something very special. I've gone through the mill with different things with my employment from professional sport and also in the corporate world. And, you don't feel valued. You feel like a pawn, a piece of meat, so to speak. And, it's really is sobering because, we all have feelings, we all have emotions, we all got different things going on in our lives. And I think it's about having an understanding. And I think a lot of businesses are starting to cotton on to it. Hang on, it's about, are you actually looking after your staff? Are your staff getting the best of what they can? Are we educating them enough? It's not always about bottom line figures, because the bottom line figures will change if you can't retain your staff. So if you retain your staff and they feel valued, wanted and appreciated, whether that is because, you've got them a health club membership or you've got them, understanding more about nutrition, where you talk about it. Why am I eating that? What am I doing? Is that the best thing to do? Is it good to sit down all day long? And no, it's not good for you. It's about interaction with people as well, the communication sort of aspects. And I think, we can learn from both, really. I think to tell you the truth is because you can have mental health issues when you're a professional sport person. There's no doubt about that. That void, the vacuous sort of gap that's left when you put your boots up on the hook, and that's the end of it. And I think my brother came up with an analogy once. He said, "You're like a gladiator," and I said, "All right, okay." He said, "Look, you're a gladiator going into the Colosseum. Everybody's baying for, screaming, shouting. You're in that Pantheon area, the Colosseum, and all of a sudden you win, and you walk out the gates into oblivion, and you've gone from that euphoria, that euphoric, to Joe Public." And to come down from that, and people, "Oh yeah, but you've been blessed, you've earned a lot of money." Yeah, I've earned a lot of money. We've all lost a lot of money, and we've all done different things. Life is life, and you can't ever bottle that sort of. I've been blessed, no doubt about it, with the Lions, with the Wales, and the euphoric sort of atmospheres. We've all run. You guys have run out into big crowds, and the buzz and getting your cap and what millions have wanted to do but can't do it, or haven't been picked to do it, and you're there, and you go, "Wow, this is pretty good. This is pretty good." But it doesn't last forever, does it? So that's the thing. It's short-lived, and then all of a sudden, then you've got that vacuous sort of in your life thereafter. What am I going to do now? I'm still in it. I'm still in it. I go from time to time. I'm up and down. I spoke to you briefly the other day, boys, and I was going through the middle the last couple of weeks and going, "Wow, what am I doing here? What's this all about?" And I say these things not for sympathy. I say it so it can relate to other people, to stop them going through tough moments on their own, because I think it's important. that, no one should feel that bad. And I think people, the communication sort of lines need to be open, and people need to reach out to people and check in. And yes, it's a tough, crazy world out there. And I think you needed empathy, and you need support.
Yeah,
It's very
sorry,
sorry, man.
Fitzy, go on. You carry on, Fitzy.
I was gonna say that, Dafydd. I mean, it's very brave. Someone with such a storied career who's been to the top of the mountain in terms of sport and life to speak about these things, because it's something that affects everybody at different to different degrees and at different times of people's lives. So I think it's important to share. And as you say, it's not for sympathy, but I think when you speak about a problem, you're halfway in the way of solving the problem, as opposed to, and it's very, I think, very much a male issue to bottle things up and not to speak about things. But if you keep bottling things up, poof, at some point it's going to explode. So it's good that you do that.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I mean, at the start of the conversation, David, you mentioned avatar. You had your avatar on, and obviously, when you make that transition, you're a hero in Wales and a British Lion hero, then all of a sudden, then you stop playing, the avatar comes off, and that's when the transition is you've got to make that transition and find. A new purpose. You've already touched upon that. I mean, how have you tried to find a new identity, a new purpose, making that transition?
Yeah, it's very difficult, and shouldn't be taken lightly, really, because yeah, I was a different person when I played, because it was mentally that's what I wanted to do, and a lot of people possibly didn't like me when I played, and I'm still always been the same person. But it's it's just having that winning mentality of being, I'm going to be the best that I can be, and you're going to try and step in the way of it, and I'm going to try and be better than you, and that's what the game is about dominating your opposition, right, and winning. So for me, it was very, very tough. It still is. It's finding your path, finding your purpose, and I read a book called Simon Seismic, Start with a Why. I don't know if you've come across that one, and it's all about, well, why do you want to do what do you want to do? Why? So I want a business. Well, why do you want a business? And it can't be money related. It's got to be what difference you want to make. I just want financial freedom, or whatever it is, and it's all about building that focus to get you thought provoking to go, right, okay, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? And the truth of the matter is, I'm still very much in the incubation sort of period where I'm in a bit of a dilemma here. I'm on a midlife crisis, possibly, of going, wow, what's happened? Where did it all go? Where did it all go? And I think a lot of people go through that, and you go, and like I said, I haven't had time to go, I've dealt with this, I moved on. I'm still procrastinating, and that's probably part of my issue, to let things go, move forward, right, where are we going to go? But it's about having a vision, a focus, a purpose. And for me, with rugby, we had a vision to get top of the league, or whatever it is, to win the World Cup or win the Six Nations, or whatever it is. That's your vision. That's your goal. We want to finish as the top 3 in the world by the end of the year. Whatever it is, there's a vision. How are we going to do it? And there's a game plan set in place about how you're going to do it. Now, all of a sudden, that's pulled away, and you've got a blank canvas, and you're going, right, okay, should I go left? Should I go right? Do I go straight down the middle? Where am I going to go? And I think it's about having a support mechanism prior to the events, about building that sort of network of good people around you to go, right, okay, let's help this person. And I'm no different to a lot of guys, no different to you boys. I know we've all gone through a little pass and gone, where are we going? What are we going? Am I going to reside in Dubai, or am I going to Hong Kong, or are you in Texas, or whatever we are? We all end up and go, geez, how did I get here? I don't. What am I doing? And things just happen, and that's life. But it's It's difficult. I struggle, as you can see. I'm a bit discombobulated when I'm talking about it because it's all jumbled up in my mind of going, I'm just, right, okay, I've got to do little steps first. And I know I can tell people what to do, but doing it yourself is different. I don't know why. It's always like your parents will tell you something. You wouldn't listen to them. You'd always listen to someone else who'd tell you exactly the same thing as your parents said, but you wouldn't listen to your parents, right? But it's yeah, it's tough. It's tough. And all I'd say to people is if you are struggling, put your hand up. Is no shame in that. It shows strength. It shows, you are valued, you are appreciated. And I think it's important that you have the mechanisms around you. And, I'm glad I've met you boys and, you've been great for me. And, it's just getting little things to look forward to, having little milestones to go, yeah. And like I said at the start, it's about once you get to that milestone, let's enjoy it. Enjoy it for that moment, let's not just lay back on it. Right, next milestone, I want to reach that one and we'll celebrate again. Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, yeah. Because life can be so up and down. It can turn on its head so quickly, as we know, as we're getting a bit older. Lots of things are happening to people we love and different things, and the world just turns itself on its head. So it's about embracing that and trying to enjoy the wins in life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you made, in actual fact, you said three things that one of our other guests said about making transition. So if you're an athlete now looking to make a transition, number one is don't be afraid to ask for help. Number two was, use your network, use your contacts as well, because there's great contacts in the world and in the rugby world. And number three is to find purpose and then have the confidence to do it. I mean, I think personally, having known you for a number of years, you've got so much leadership skills that you could bring to the table. Like a really good purpose, I think, for someone like yourself would be a CEO of a big company. And perhaps that should be, someone like yourself should be really focused on doing and talking about leadership as well.
Yeah, very much so. And as we've talked about there, you're such a powerful and strong advocate for mental health, and that takes a lot of courage to speak, to speak about it, as we've discussed. What message do you want young athletes or business leaders to hear about asking for help?
It's difficult. It's seen as a taboo, and it shouldn't be a taboo. I think the barriers are starting to come down a little bit more, and I think people are a bit more understanding. But there's still a lot of people I know and I see who are struggling, and I could tell. Once you're in it and you've been in the hole, you can identify. And I think there's support mechanisms out there. I think all leaders as well need to have their support mechanism around them. It's difficult if you were a CEO of a business and you're saying you're struggling. You wouldn't go to your, chief operating officer and confide in them because, are you fit to run the business? And I get it. The same with players. If, I'm feeling a bit down, you don't want to tell your coach because, hang on, is he going to vilify me and not pick me because they don't think I'm in there? So it's a difficult one in that regard because, you don't want to be stigmatized as the person that's the weak link, so to speak. So it's about surrounding yourself with the proper people, doing the best that you can do. So journaling, visualization, trying to manifest your way. And it's not all ringing bells and different things. It's about, right, that's where I want to go, and I can see myself going there. How do I get there? And like you said, reach out to people, help. You need help. You need help, and go and get it. And most of all, stay away from the draining people, the ones who are going to bring you down, the anchors. Because there's plenty of them around, and unfortunately, in life, some people would like to see you fail, and that's the reality of it. Whereas, I'd like to look at, well, how did they get there? No, I'm jealous of them getting there. How did you get there? Tell me how you got there. So I think business leaders can take a lot out of surrounding themselves with other business leaders communicating, having them areas where they can communicate, doing the finer things of, as a professional sportsman, you'll know about the sleep, the nutrition, the water, the exercise, whereas business people possibly won't know so much about that. They'll know about managing a business. So it's about, and this is where the transition from sport and business comes in. It's they can leverage both off each other, in order to run operations in a rugby football club or sports club. Yeah, you need to do this. You need to be looking at that pathways, marketing, sales, whatever. But in the professional business world, they should be looking at exercise, mobility, stretching, them sort of things, or yoga sort of things. So there's a lot of collaboration between the two, and there should be a lot more.
Just going to pick up on that about business leaders. I mean, what they need, where we need a shift, perhaps, is in more of an open culture. So therefore, it should be business leaders should be encouraging their staff to speak, I think, about mental health. We can all see the stats on it. If the mental health is good, the stats are up, but a lot of business leaders, you don't want to create an environment where you don't feel that you can go to your boss to speak about these things, So it's important that leadership changes as well. Not all companies, but some companies need to open up, need to open up a lot more on that. I mean, in terms of some of the battles that you've faced. I mean, how have you used the concepts of sport and rugby to get through some of those tougher battles you've had post rugby?
Yeah, I have. And, when I've had the dark moments, and, I was talking about this on another podcast the other day, and it was, about how it affects you, and it becomes, and people look at you unless they understand it, it paralyzes you, right? And I don't mean, you just feel got no energy, can't move, you just want to lie there, you want to cry, you just want to look into space, not doing anything, you're just going to lie there for hours. Feels like minutes, but it's hours. Just cannot do anything. So, it's the rugby sort of thing for me is I'm not a big boozer. I've always looked into the nutrition, as I told you earlier. I've been, into the health drive for years. I've, been keeping myself fit and active since 15, 16 years of age. I always run around as a kid. So, for the rugby sort of thing for me, it's I built up my gym in my house. That's my man cave, for want of a better word, or description, and that's how I channel myself and just think, right, okay, there's worse vices than that than to train. For me, that's a good one in order to, right, okay, I'm ticking a box, I'm keeping myself mobile, I'm trying to get them endorphins, dopamine fix, and it helps level me, and exercise. We're all meant to be moving around. We're all supposed to be mobile. I don't think we're all supposed to be sedimentary and sitting back, and that's why things stiffen up. They don't work because we're not taught from a young age to stretch. We're not taught to you've got to keep moving. It's right. We're here to work. We're here to do this or whatever. So I think it's a number of things really. That I've been around people, the social sort of aspect. I do miss that. With the banter, the crack, the team environment, which once again, as I said about the international or the, playing in front of a big crowd, that banter and that thing makes you feel wanted, part of a team. You make your friends, you travel the world, life's good. Life's good. And so the rugby sort of thing has brought so much to me and allowed me to keep myself just bobbing above water, if you like, by doing the basic things of water, training, nutrition, foods that I eat, and I go out in the open. This is another one that I've taken on board is the ice water dipping or the cold water dipping, which once you get through the initial shock, the Wim Hof sort of methodology, it's really is quite good, and it's quite surreal how it changes you. I go through stages where I got a lot of anxiety, so my skin goes on fire, and I creep in. It's my neural system, the fight or flight sort of thing, and you just got to go back into nature. And I know it sounds very Bear Grylls-y, But if you go into somewhere where you're back into nature, you know, might even just be a garden or something with the birds singing and whatever, and just take yourself back into them moments and take yourself away. For me, going in the river quite close to me, and there's no one around, and all you just hearing just a trickling of water and birds singing, flying around, or whatever it may be, and it just does calm the mind. It's incredible.
Yeah, there's great advice there, David, and what's coming out in spades is, you know, that self reflection and knowing yourself, knowing what you need to do at any given moment to sort of bring you back to centre, so you can go again, taking those small bites. I mean, you've spoken about many different things there that you do to bring you back to centre, but can you share one thing that you do daily to keep moving forward?
Yeah, just first thing in the morning, you know, every morning. Unfortunately, I lost my dog recently, which it was just hard, and you know, he was there all throughout COVID, and that was hard, and I'd have to get up in the morning to walk my dog. I'm fortunate where I live. Not everybody lives, you know, on a coast and a mountain behind, really, but you know, I live in a wonderful part of the world, and I used to walk my dog every morning. So for me, I'd have to get up to walk him. You know, even when I
Hmm.
was really down, I'd have to do it. And you know, that energy was brilliant. Pets are a wonderful way of, you know, soothing, and you know, the unconditional love that they show is incredible, especially dogs. And for me, what I do every morning, I get up. I try not to look at my phone for at least 40 minutes, because you know it distracts you straight away, and all of a sudden you're back into the head work and the drive of emails and freaking social media, and look at what they're doing and all this sort of stuff. So I come off the social media sort of platforms, apart from one, I think it is, and LinkedIn, but I use that for business. But I just go for a little walk in the fresh air, whether it's raining, and I'm trying to get to that point of gratitude, really. So going, well, I'm still here. I'm breathing. You know, I'm blessed, and just taking time to reflect. Like I've said several times here, I didn't really reflect on that particular moment, and I think it's about living in moments. We're all, we're all coming to the world with nothing. We're all going to go with nothing, essentially. So it's about the experiences in life. I think, you know, experiences are what it's about. You know, spending time with your loved ones, your family, the experiences, not about the material things. It's about the actual connections. And it's only recently I've you know, it's been like a bit of an epiphany, really, because you're always chasing. Everybody's always chasing, you know. And then when you get there, you like I said, you know, you want to go on to the next one, and it didn't fulfill that gap, and so you want to go on to the next bit, and it's like, oh, take a step back and reflect. Enjoy them simple things like going for a walk in the countryside, or going for a sea swim, or in a cold water dip, and things like that, and just going, wow, how lucky am I?
How lucky are we all?
Yeah.
Great advice.
Before Fitzy gets on to the quick fire questions, David, I mean, just a couple points on that. It's all obviously about living in a moment, and also reflecting on you know, what a wonderful rugby career that you've had, and the experiences and the people that you've met through the rugby career, through your rugby career as well. Um, in terms of your book, I mean, we're obviously all excited about it. And is that out? Did you say it's 4th or 5th of September?
I think it's now been moved back to the 28th of September, but it's definitely out of September, yeah.
Yeah, we'll keep everyone notified basically when that book comes out, and me and Fitzy will grab a copy.
It's on Amazon, apparently. So there we are.
Great, we'll
Very
definitely
good.
grab a copy, get some inspiration.
I hope so.
No, I'm sure it'll be very interesting. Looking
Yeah.
forward to reading it. So as Moo alluded to there, we're through the quick fire questions here. So don't overthink it. Let's go. Who was the toughest opponent you ever faced?
John Alone.
Good answer.
Yeah, good answer. What's one leadership trait you value above all?
Trust. Trust.
One piece of advice for someone struggling to find their next chapter.
Reach out for help, support, get a support mechanism. Good people around you. Yeah.
Good advice. Your proudest career moment.
Career moment, playing for the British and Irish Lions, getting selected to play in a test match.
Very good. What's next for Dafydd James?
Interesting question. Try and enjoy the moment. There's a lot left in the tank. For me, I need to reassess. I'm still in the building phase, and I think I struggle. But I struggle internally, really. So I think it's just finding peace in a piece. So probably finding inner peace.
No, good advice. Thank you, Dafydd. Your career, your personal journey shows what true resilience looks like, from the Lions tours to opening up about your mental health battles. Your story is powerful because it's honest. It's a reminder that leadership isn't just about winning, it's about courage on and off the field. Thanks for sharing your story with us today on The Business End.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
David.
Take care.